In my hand, I have a bill which has been pre-filed and, if passed, will enable the people of Alabama to elect again the Superintendent of Education beginning in 1982. Elected officers are more responsive and attentive to the needs and well-being of the people they serve. A public official who has his fingers in nearly $1 billion worth of tax pie and has authority and control over millions of lives should be able at all times to feel the hot breath of the taxpayer and voter on the back of his neck.
Get in there, get in there.
It's here in Demopolis that the Warrior and Tombigbee rivers converge, and it's here that some of the most extensive flooding in the state is taking place. Literally half the countryside around Demopolis is underwater, and a rise of several feet is still expected before the river crests tomorrow at 74 feet. That's 20 feet above flood stage. The downtown area of Demopolis is not threatened by the waters, but the city's northern residential area is. Residents had to abandon their homes and cars and other possessions. The National Guard, meanwhile, is still evacuating several homes who may be affected by tomorrow's crest. The city's industrial sector along the banks of the Tombigbee also fell victim, such as the Demopolis Hickory Mill, the Miller Lumber Company, and the Demopolis Grain Mill. The countryside is also underwater, many farmhouses half submerged in the mucky waters. Several miles from the Warrior and Tombigbee rivers, residents with cabins and trailers along Runaway Creek can now only see the very rooftops of their homes. The 145th Engineering Battalion has activated 80 men, most of them from the 167th Engineering Corps in Demopolis. They're there to help evacuate residents.
We only got 2 people hurt and nothing bad, and we think we've moved somewhere around 375 families out and about 500 head of cattle, and it's just been real good so far.
The Red Cross and Salvation Army have sent in units to prepare food for the homeless. Governor James has asked that the entire state be declared a disaster area so federal relief funds can be sought. The damage is already extensive, and with several more feet to go before the river crests, officials won't even begin to guess the total damage estimates. In Demopolis, Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
In neighboring Alabama, at least 3,000 people have fled their homes and the floodwaters. Here is a late report from Chris Grimshaw of station WSFA TV in Montgomery.
Some of the most extensive flooding in the state of Alabama is occurring in Demopolis, where the Warrior and Tombigbee rivers converge. The flooding is severe, surpassing a record 1961 flood with water levels nearly 20 feet above flood stage. Nearly 2,000 people along the river's banks have been evacuated by National Guard and civil defense crews. Underwater are portions of the city's northern residential area, just about all of the city's business district located along the Tombigbee River, and miles of countryside. Officials haven't started tallying the damages, but Alabama Governor Fob James has already declared the county a disaster area. The Red Cross and Salvation Army have both dispatched people to the area to prepare food for the evacuees. While the river crests, residents have little choice but to sit and wait. Wait for the floodwaters to flow on southward toward the Gulf of Mexico. For NBC News, Chris Grimshaw, Demopolis, Alabama.
In St. George, Utah, last night, Senator
This attractive Wetumpka neighborhood is filled with $70,000 and $80,000 homes. It's called Riverside Estates. And after last weekend's flood, the people who live here say they believe it. Water stood several feet high in the streets and yards, getting into the houses, ruining whatever was inside. Health Department officials touring today talked with the residents, answering their questions about the cleanup and any possible health hazards.
Push it aside.
One man says he and his family will live as best they can until they can move back into their home.
We're staying with friends right now and have been since Friday night. Stay with my brother Friday night and then friends the rest of the time, and we made arrangements for a travel trailer to come in that Secretary has going to bring it up here now.
How long before you can move back in the house?
I'm anticipating about 2 months.
Still closer to the Coosa River is Marshall Street. The homes on Marshall Street aren't as expensive as the ones in Riverside Estates, but the floodwaters weren't prejudiced. H.D. Sutherland says he and his wife watched the water rushing down their street like a river, pushing his brother's camper down the hill into a swollen creek.
I heard something flop out there, and he had run up on the shallow water, and he was hunting for the swift water coming down the branch. And I hollered at my brother-in-law and told him there's a big bass out there. Oh, he said, and he got up and went in the house. So directly there was some white perch turning sideways going up into the swift water. They're following that swift water coming down out of the ditch.
Health officials say the Wetumpka city water is safe to drink, but all well water should be boiled at least 10 minutes, and wells need to be checked immediately for contamination. Many people are worried that they may need inoculations after the flood, but the man in charge of monitoring contagious diseases in the state says they aren't necessary.
There might be a very, very small number of people in unusual circumstances that might need certain types of immunization, such as tetanus shots for injuries, and those would be special situations that would be handled by individual physicians.
Elmore County health officials are urging people with health-related questions to call their office at 567-5171. Michael Jones, WSFA TV News. Flood insurance is issued by the National Flood Insurance Program, operated by the government under the Federal Emergency Management Agency. For a policy to be issued, the prospective customer must live in a floodplain area and must live in a city belonging to the program. Montgomery does belong, but there are very few people who have policies. 53 in Montgomery City and County combined, 8,746 in the entire state. According to a spokesman with the program, it's very easy to get the insurance. Simply go to your local insurance agent and inquire about it. But it's not always that easy. Several Montgomery insurance agents told us they would rather not handle flood coverage. Why? Well, there were several reasons mentioned. The forms are difficult to fill out, there's too much red tape and federal bureaucracy. One agent for a well-known insurance company said he tells people asking about flood insurance that his company doesn't write it, but that he would deny ever saying that if we quoted him. One insurance agent who does handle flood coverage is Richard Harriff.
Our suspicion, it's like most all federal programs, there's a lot of red tape and a lot of paperwork involved. It's generally a very low premium item. It's relatively inexpensive, and consequently there's a lot of trouble for little reward in processing the paperwork.
All of the insurance people we talked with agree that the cost of the National Flood Insurance is very reasonable, well worth the price. But to get it, you must live in a floodplain area, and you have to find an agent who will write it for you. To get more information on the National Flood Insurance Program, they have established a toll-free number for you to call, 1-800-638-6620. Michael Jones, WSFA TV News.
The Governmental Affairs Committee of the Alabama Senate began its work on the Constitution by deciding to form two subcommittees to look at the bill. Most of the committee members agreed on the need for the document, but expressed concern over just how to go about their work on it. Finally, the committee voted to hold 3 days of public hearings. Then the subcommittees will take over in the preparation of the Constitution for its debate on the floor of the Senate. Perhaps an even bigger task in the process of approving a new Constitution will be educating the people as to what is in it. Governmental Affairs Committee Chairman Senator Bill Smith of Huntsville says he hopes some of the publicity around the legislative process will help in that education.
The information as the committee is working that will be disseminated to the public will, I think, make them very aware of what's in the Constitution. The governor's office has already printed up 10,000 copies as newsprint, and it has the whole Constitution in it. So that information is being disseminated all around the state. And we're trying to get out as much information as possible about the Constitution.
The public hearings before the committee are scheduled for Friday, Saturday, and Monday of next week. The particulars of time and place of those hearings will be decided at a future committee meeting. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
This is the official police account of the incident.
Approximately 2:45 a.m. Sunday morning, Easter Sunday, the police department received a shooting call at the Galvin's truck stop. The units arrived. They found a victim, which is identified as Clyde Davis, black male, 44 years old, from Columbus, Georgia, had been shot once in the forehead. At that time, our investigation led to the arrest yesterday of James W. Payne, white male, 51, who lives here in Montgomery, who has been charged with assault with intent to murder in regards to that shooting.
Payne, the accused man, is said by informed sources to say that he went to the truck stop to tell truckers that his wrecker would not be operating Easter Sunday and that the victim opened fire on him for no apparent reason. Another story alleges that Payne became upset because the wounded man was on the CB radio and that Payne was monitoring from his service station on the Southern Bypass across from the truck stop, and the victim came on the radio. Payne allegedly told him to get off that frequency, that he had no business on that channel. After allegedly exchanging words, sources say Payne allegedly got his gun, went to Gowan's truck stop, shots were fired, and a gun battle ensued. Police say 10 shots were fired into Payne's car. The driver was later found slumped over the wheel of his truck, shot in the head. Payne is free on bond in the case. The victim is listed in critical condition at a local hospital. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
Well, there's a lot different things. I think you find politics enters into things a lot more than it did into Auburn and Tuskegee. And we believe that there is a matter of allocation to distributors. They have a certain amount of diesel fuel allotted to them. And certainly agriculture ought to stand in a high priority as to the allocation of diesel fuel where farmers can use it to plant.
The Red Cross is sheltering about 40 persons at this community center. Some residents have been here since Monday, waiting for the floodwaters to recede. Bertha Blackman is grateful she has a place to stay.
They're treating us really nice. You know, I don't know about the rest. I figure they're doing the same thing everywhere. They're real nice to us. They're nice to me. All of them, white and color, real nice to me. I don't think I could be treated better. That's true.
Mrs. Blackman is anxious to get back to her home. The Dallas County Civil Defense Director said some persons already have returned to their houses. He warns that's not a good idea because more rain upstream could cause flash flooding. He says residents whose homes are in danger should stay out of their houses until the water begins receding quickly. Lisa Nielsen, WSFA TV News, Selma.
Each year, thousands of Alabamians perish in automobile accidents throughout the state. Officials say a large number of the fatal accidents are due to hazardous driving conditions, mainly deteriorating roads in Alabama. Repairing those sections is but one of the aims of the State Safety Coordinating Committee. The group is holding its 16th annual conference, a two-day event focusing not only on traffic safety, but preventing accidents in the home. For the first time, the 350 persons attending the conference will learn what can be done to improve pedestrian and bicycle safety. Governor Fob James was the keynote speaker during today's luncheon, telling the crowd the state's highway system is Alabama's largest capital investment and must be maintained. Drumming up support for his plan to fix the state's highways, James said, quote, "It's time to get the people out of the mud," unquote. The governor also announced a Get Tough policy for those caught driving under the influence of alcohol. The Safety Committee's theme for this year is Win with Safety, something the governor and all those attending the conference pledged to do. Paul Roth, WSFA TV News.
The PSC bill, introduced by Representative Rick Manley of Demopolis, would increase the commission by 4 members, 2 appointed by the governor and 1 each selected by the lieutenant governor and the Speaker of the House. The 4 would serve with pay just like the other associate commissioners, but only until January 1st of 1982. Manley says he sponsored the bill for Governor Fob James, and he believes the legislation will help.
I think this would enable to broaden the base. It will have some people that will be appointed from business and industry, I feel sure, across the state. Possibly some people with great expertise in financial management, expertise in construction, expertise in electrical engineering, things of this nature that would bring some broad knowledge and background and information to the Public Service Commission that might not be available presently.
PSC President Juanita McDaniel says the increase is a good idea, but
I do hope that the legislature will see fit to reduce the number at the present time. We just simply don't have the budget, nor do we have the space to take care of 4 additional commissioners. I think we could handle 2 additional ones.
another commissioner, Jim Folsom Jr., opposes the measure. The PSC bill was one of many bills introduced today. In the Senate, a bill was proposed by J. Richmond Pearson of Birmingham that would allow a tax deduction for a charitable donation for giving blood. Representative Jimmy Holly of Elba sponsored legislation to repeal the state's controversial good time law.
The first 2 legislative days of a new session serve procedure more than anything else. It's during these first 2 days that bills and resolutions introduced begin their long process through the committee system and their first and second readings in the respective houses. Next Tuesday will be the 3rd legislative day for both the House and the Senate. At this time, floor debate will be possible on those bills which reach the first calendar in those respective bodies. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
Deserving city in our estimation, and we're delighted this young man right here has worked very closely with you, and we're going to continue to work.
Of course, we included them in our press release, and to go ahead and handle that prospect and get it in, because we feel.
Gotcha. Mobile television.
About 4 months after the mayor decided that they wanted to be a preferred city, and Mr. Morissette was the first president of that task force down there, and so
Prattville's Live Oak subdivision is located next to a canebrake, which during part of this year acted as a roost for blackbirds. The droppings of those birds formed histoplasmosis, but now Autauga County Health Department Administrator Bobby Bryant says 2 other sites have been uncovered.
Initially, back the latter part of last year, a 2.5-year-old child went to a local physician here in Prattville. The physician suspected that the child might have histo and did some laboratory tests, which confirmed that the child did have histo. From that, an investigation was started, which led to an area close to one of the daycare centers here in town, and from that a soil sample was taken of the area near the daycare center, and it did, like I say, prove to be positive.
One of the child care sites found to be a possible exposure area is the kinder care located next to these trees on Loader Street in Prattville.
Out of about 68 children that we tested at one of the daycare centers, we had 54 positive skin tests, or approximately a 79% positive rate. At the other daycare center, we tested 40 children and had approximately 10 of those children that were positive, to a much lesser degree positive. So that's about a 33% positive rate there.
Brian says the test only indicates exposure to the spore, not contraction of the disease, which is a rare occurrence. The city of Prattville is working with the health department on plans to spray a formaldehyde-based chemical on the roosting sites to decontaminate them. Bryant says after the equipment is chosen, they will begin spraying the chemical, which can cause some irritation to the skin and eyes.
They should leave the area for possibly the 3 to 4 hours, and that's an approximate time now that it takes each day to do the decontamination.
Officials say it might be 3 weeks before the first spraying takes place. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News in Prattville.
Such a political action committee, if they're allowed to exist at all. I don't have any specific knowledge. We're going to provide a service to the members of the House and Senate who are interested in seeing that the election laws are updated. And we were expecting a relatively small crowd. Well, what we have done is an elections commission was appointed. That commission held 14 regional meetings throughout the state. Over 1,500 citizens participated in those meetings and helped identify many, many problems with the elections process. And as well, they also made suggested solutions to those problems. And right now I'm in the process of working with various members of the House and Senate to draft reasonable, constructive changes to those, or solutions to those problems. And we hope to have legislation presented during the first few days of the session.
80 Alabama State football players wearing full gear came out for today's practice session, which consisted mostly of fundamental work on both offense and defense. Hornet coach George James expressed an optimistic view on the future of his squad after watching this afternoon's drills.
Well, we got a lot of work to do in the fundamentals, and we got a lot of holes to fill on the defense and offensive team.
All right. You lost 14 seniors, I understand, last year. I'm sure that that's going to be a big concern, is replacing them.
That's right. But I think we got some replacement for these. We lost last year because the attitude had been good all year. We started our off-season program, condition program, weightlifting in January, and everybody been seen to be enthused over it.
What areas do you seem to be lacking most in so far?
Well, linebacker on our defense. We got to start with 2 sophomore linebackers next year. But I think they can handle the job. They're strong on everything.
Do you think you'll be able to go 8-3 or even better again this year?
Well, I hope to. I hope to go 9-2 or 9-10-1.
Overall, do you think you have better talent this year? Do you think you've got better potential?
I think so.
Spring football practice for Alabama State will conclude Saturday, May 5th with the annual Black and Gold game, which will be played at Bellingrath School. Coach James has 17 more sessions before that Black and Gold game to evaluate and set the personnel for his 1979 Hornet football team. James Spann, WSFA TV Sports.
College officials call this special gathering of the state Supreme Court another first in the area of human and racial relations for Tuskegee Institute, elated that the campus became the first predominantly black university to have been the site of a state Supreme Court special session. The Supreme Court has in the past met for special sessions at other universities and cities. College President Dr. Luther Foster says they invited the High Court to hold its session on the campus as part of its centennial-era celebration.
This is one of the activities which is in a way typical of the very active place that we have here at Tuskegee, where we try to provide a wide range of experiences for our Tuskegee students and for the community as well.
Several hundred university students and interested Tuskegee residents sat in Logan Hall and watched as attorneys argued their cases. One case sought the reversal of a first-degree murder conviction. The other seeks to dissolve a church after its congregation split over the firing of its former minister. The Supreme Court boasts several accomplishments, including expedient hearings with no backlogs, new laws which permit electronic news coverage such as the TV pictures you're watching, and a good record of taking the court to the people.
The function of the court is to settle disputes between citizens and the state, and to exhibit the manner in which these decisions are made, to me, is significant to the public and to the faculty and students of Tuskegee Institute.
Chief Justice Torbert says the practice of taking the court to the people is important. Therefore, they try and make at least 3 such excursions during the year. The institution, meanwhile, is trying to prove that it's viable as a campus and an educational facility for the nation, entertaining in the recent past not only the Supreme Court of Alabama, but Vice President Walter Mondale as well. At Tuskegee Institute, Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
All right, we're going to have a countdown here. Everybody's ready. We're going to start
2 brand new saws out here, and Mayor Farmer has brought his own saw, and it's lubricated and it's sharper than the 2 new saws, and that's just like a man bringing his own ball and his own referee, and I think we need to say something about that.
Did Mr. Pekin, I get to respond to that?
Yes, sir.
They brought their logs.
What makes you think it's their logs?
Well, I'm sure that the governor specified the logs, because if Mr. Pekin had specified them, we wanted 36-inch logs.
No, we specified 10-inch.
I'm disappointed that more people didn't show up, but by the same token, I don't think that that really the public hearings were publicized enough in advance to allow a number of people to be down here. The chairman of our committee just announced Wednesday afternoon that we would hold public hearings on Friday, and a lot of the committee members, a lot of the senators could not be here today because they had prior business commitments and things of that nature. So I can't really blame the public, because I really don't think they've been afforded enough time to be down here.
You think perhaps the hearing should have been moved out of Montgomery so other people in other sections could have a chance to participate?
Well, I think that would be an excellent idea, but of course right now I think we're pretty well past that point.
But if these be criticisms, then I don't really know exactly what would be expected. I think we have done those things that have been demanded of other departments. Maybe we've done them better, and maybe we have maybe it's an overkill. Maybe we have done things better than we were supposed to do. I hope that's not the case. I hope that people appreciate what we're doing.
The governor talked at length explaining the extra revenue needed for the state's highways. He said the state needed about $100 million a year for 4 years to help the road system. But he did not talk of a percentage tax. Instead, just a straight increase of 4 cents per gallon added to the existing 7 cents.
I think the legislature and the people of Alabama have got a decision to make, and I support the decision. They want to bring their roads up to base. A user tax on petroleum products is probably the most closely associated tax to do with the use of the product that they're buying. The tax goes on for, say, a period of 4 years, and then it automatically eliminates. It's terminated. There's no more tax. That's on a pay-as-you-go basis. I think that's sound fiscally, and I'm proud to say that, in my judgment, I think for the first time in the history of this state, the people in the legislature can know precisely in advance what their road money will buy.
Governor James also said that a bill introduced in the House yesterday to increase the number of Public Service Commission members was a good one. He said, quote, "The decisions that need to be made by the PSC need to be based on facts and reality and not politics, period."
Absolutely
James
not.
said he would begin traveling the state within several weeks to promote his proposed new constitution. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
If you can be
in this there were only 3 witnesses at the Senate Governmental Affairs Committee's hearing on the new Constitution proposed by Governor Fob James. The hearings were not announced until late Wednesday, and the committee's first session, held yesterday, generated little interest from the public or its 13 members. Only 4 showed up. But 7 were present today as the 3 teachers voiced their opposition to including a provision in the new Constitution that would unearmark tax revenue for education. State Senator Doug Cook of Vestavia noted during the hearings that a number of rural Alabama counties provide only the minimum local funding required by law to participate in the state education program, and that, he said, is atrocious. Discussion of education funds led some committee members to pose questions about teacher competency, an issue which, like the Constitution, is likely to generate heated debate during the legislature's 79 regular session. Willis insisted that Alabama teachers would stack up against colleagues in other states, but he insisted the real measurement of teachers is not a written test or the number of educational degrees, but how they communicate to their students. After Parham concluded his testimony, the committee recessed briefly to await the arrival of witnesses from the Alabama Education Association, but when those witnesses did not appear, the committee adjourned for the weekend. The committee's hearing on the Constitution resumes Monday, one day before the legislature reconvenes for the third legislative day of the regular session. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
It's a coordinated effort where you bring all state agencies and all federal agencies and volunteer agencies together. This will keep people from having to go down to the Small Business Administration, and then some people going to the Social Security office and some people going to the IRS office. Every agency will be there together to serve everybody's need at the same time.
Thanks to a $500,000 grant from the Governor's Office of Highway and Traffic Safety, more troopers are patrolling the roads. The money is paying overtime wages to troopers who give up one of their days off each week. Only those who want to work overtime. Sergeant J.F. Bryant says the extra troopers do not cover accidents, but go on routine patrol.
These men are out there for strictly for enforcement purposes. We try not to use them if we don't have to accept calls for accidents and other type routine calls that we get. They're out there strictly for enforcement purposes only.
And is that because you don't have enough people to cover the accidents and the enforcement?
Yes, like everybody else, we tend to have a shortage of help, so these men are paid extra to work on their off days.
Bryant says the troopers are concentrating on high accident areas in hopes of reducing the number of deaths on Alabama's highways. Lisa Nielsen, WSFA TV News.